Welcome to the Marketing Revolution podcast. This is the underground movement of savage marketers from all over the world. We are not Fortune 500 companies. We are real entrepreneurs with real businesses that have one major thing in mind: to set goals and devour them daily. Because we understand everyone wants to eat, but only savage marketers are willing to do the hunt. Now let's get this revolution started. You good? Hey, what's up, everybody? John Hiley here with the Marketing Revolution podcast and the Marketing Savage Facebook group, coming to you today with another live interview with my friend, the famous, the best doctor that I know, Dr. D. How you doing today?
What's up, Marketing Savage? You said the best doctor you know? Okay, you know how to make
best doctor I know. So how you doing today?
I'm trying to get my voice back from the weekend.
Trying to get your voice back because we've seen you screaming on stage, right?
That's right. That's right.
Doing mic drops and doing things like that.
That mic drop, boy, I had no idea. Like, it was totally impromptu. That's not something I planned, but that's totally me. Just go with it.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So, Dr. D, you actually just came back from the Lion's Den Live. And for some folks that don't know what that event is, that's one of Sean Whalen's events. Sean Whalen has a clothing line and also kind of a movement in a community called the Lion's Den. And his clothing line is called Lions Not Sheep. And we've seen Sean over the years. His events were very small to begin with. I mean, they were held in hotels. I mean, just like many, overnight success, it only takes you, 10 years to be the overnight success, right? And literally, I think this event, I mean, it just blew up. I mean, I was there last year, and I want to say there was 250 people there. And this year, there might have been 1,000 people there. And so Dr. D here was one of the speakers at the event. So tell us a little bit about, how that went down, and let's just talk a little bit, and then we'll work our way through some of the things that you specialize in and talk about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did. I joined his tribe. He calls it his tribe about 2.5 years ago. And the first event I went to, it was a little over 100 people. And that was phenomenal. Like, I like getting bigger, but, you can't take anything away from the smaller event. And so each event he's had, I've gone to, and you get to meet the people that we've connected with online, and we've learned things from each other within the group, right? The online group, but then now we meet them in person. Now we get nuggets on business and all this other stuff. And so this time, this is what I love about Sean. He says, who wants to level up? Who doesn't want to level up, right? And so we had an opportunity to kind of pitch how we would communicate with people who were on stage. And of course, the hype woman, I was the first one, and I was glad to get the response that he said, hey, are you going to be there when you speak? And so he gave me my 5 minutes of fame at his event, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was incredible. And, I'm so proud of you. I've seen that, and I was just like, wow, like excited, because I love seeing people that I know, that I love, blow up, and it's just awesome to see you there, because I know how hard you work. I mean, you work incredibly hard in all of your businesses, and you keep telling me, you say, last year was amazing, but this year is going to be like next level, right? So what a great way to, we're about halfway through the year to level up. And so, Dr. D, you've also written several books. So let's talk a little bit about that. What books have you written? What are they about? Kind of explain to the audience here what you do, what you specialize in.
Cool. I love this stuff. I get to talk about me, right?
Yes.
I love to write. I've written since I was younger, but like never really thought that I would be able to birth a book, right? I never had that much confidence in myself. And being a part of this group, seeing Sean's book unfold, that's really what I'm like, what? I can do this. It was just like speaking, I can do this. And so my first book was literally me putting my thoughts in that I've had for years onto paper. It's called From the Voice of a Fractured Mind, Speak Loud. And it's my memoir / self-help book. So I tell my story, but then I tell you how you're seeing who you see right now. What is the strategies that I live in my day-to-day life? How do I think about life? How do I think about my past? How do I think about what I'm experiencing now? And how do I think about the things that I want to accomplish in my life? And so many, if you're watching this, people that will be attracted to this is usually people that have issues with self doubt, past trauma, toxic relationships, because Dr. D has experienced all of that. And so that was my first book. Also have a printed journal. I have another book, as a matter of fact, I have it right here because I use it a lot. So that's the first one, From the Voice of a Fractured Mind, Speak Loud. Boom, mic drop.
There it is.
And then my third book is Dating Myself Unmasked. It's about moving from sexual trauma to self-acceptance. And so again, it's more about trauma. It talks way more about trauma in that book, and talks about how to literally date yourself so that you can move on to date other people. You know, if you want to be in a healthy relationship, you have to fall in love with yourself. And then finally, one I'm called the Queen of Boundaries, as well as Dr. D. It's called Boundaries Are for Bullies. Don't let them take your lunch money. And that right there is my niche.
I like that. No, I love that. Don't let them take your lunch money. Because there's so many people that spend their entire life just being ran over by everybody. I would say I'm probably on the opposite scale of that spectrum. I'm the individual that, like, you run me over fucking once, I'm going to put my boot in your neck. And that's just the way I am. And that's the way I've been. And I've actually had to kind of tone that down over time, even with employees and stuff like that, because I was almost too aggressive at certain points, to where I had to, like, understand, I'm like, this aggression that I have inside of me is not getting me anywhere. Right. And, I believe that I had to kind of, like, learn the exact opposite to unlearn that. Right. But I see so many people in so many wakes of life that just literally get ran to the end of their, like, to their wits end by everybody. And I believe that there's a huge thing with that. And you were talking about something as well as, like, boundaries in marriage. You recently released something, and we're going to, Dr. D actually has a free download that we're going to be dropping in the comments here inside of this live interview. So we'll do that after the interview is done. So we'll drop a link to that. And let's talk a little bit about the boundaries in marriage. So what does that look like?
Yes, I don't want to give it all away, but what I essentially show you how to do is to show up in your marriage or committed relationship, right? I'm not going to discriminate against if you actually have a ring or a certificate. Now I'm talking about two people that have agreed to be in relationship with one another. And the reason why I can speak to this, oftentimes people are like, this person can't help me because they're not in a relationship. Quite on the contrary, I can help you because I was married for close to 20 years, 2 marriages. And so I think I kind of got it figured out, especially since, now I know what I want. Now I know how I show up to my relationship and how I coach other people. And essentially what I teach the person or couple, because sometimes one partner will come, is that you have to be the one to show up. Like, don't come into the marriage or the relationship saying, I need John to change, right? No, I show you how to change. And I'm telling you, I'm literally saving people's marriage.
That's cool. That's cool. It's interesting when you talk about trauma as well. A lot of people do not realize that they suffer from some sort of trauma, or they don't realize that trauma is actually affecting their actions. And I'll give you an example that I know of personally. And it took me a long time to admit this. But because my mother abandoned me at birth, I can still remember when I was 6 months old, being like, just wondering like where she went. And I was left with my grandmother. And I remember just like chasing my grandmother around when I was like crawling around on the floor as a little kid. And my grandmother at the time said that I wouldn't even let her leave my sight. So, if she went in to use the restroom as a little kid, I would crawl up to that restroom door and I would just be bawling my eyes out because she left my sight. And that was trauma that I experienced at that age from my mother leaving me. And I think that people don't realize that like young trauma, like that at that age, that actually means that you experience what we would think of as death, because typically as when you're at that age, if you get abandoned by your parents out in the nature, out in the wild, you just die, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You just die. So you experience like that feeling of death at an early age. And I didn't realize that later on that caused me to a lot of issues with me and my wife, where I would want to leave her quicker than she could leave me. So a little argument would fire up and I would be ready to abandon her because I didn't want to be abandoned again. I was feared. I secretly didn't even know, my subconscious feared this abandonment inside of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it caused us problems because every time we got in a little argument, I'm gone. See you later. Bye. Go. Right. So that was my response for a long time. And we live these lives and we don't put two and two together. It's like you got to be you got to work on yourself at such a level throughout your entire life that one day it just hits
for
you.
Somebody to put that two and two together that you're talking about. And that's where I come in because, I found out a handful of years that I struggled with abandonment, right? And let me tell you how I came across it. I was actually helping another client. It was a minority. And so I wouldn't even thought this was a thing. I would have been working with the lady for a while because at that time, my concept of abandonment looked like, oh, either you were adopted or like you said, someone just left you out in the jungle, left you out in the world. And I had not thought about the concept of a child viewing from a child's perspective, their parent or their caregiver not being available to them. And so this particular client was basically put in a parental role to parent her adult parents at a young age because her parents were emotionally immature. And so basically what she was coming to seek me out was to deal with that abandonment that she felt that she never got parented. She never felt the parenting from her parents. And so while I'm talking to her and she's explaining this to me, and I was like, oh, you feel abandoned. And she was like, yeah. And then this was the exchange in our session. She had an epiphany and I had an epiphany because basically my parents divorced and, both of my parents were involved in my life, but at a very young age, while they were having their little tough because they were, separated, my father would get upset with my mother and say, I'm not going to get the kids. And so I was angry with my mother for a very, very long time because I used to say, please don't make daddy mad, But what I did through my own work, like you said, we need to work on ourselves. I had to acknowledge that I was really angry with my dad. So that's why I never got into a relationship with a man that I thought could one-up me. Because you weren't going to say, I'm not coming to get you. I'm not coming to spend time with you or whatever the case might be. So I had that in relationships. I had it in 20 years collectively of marriage, of running. Like you said, for you said I always ran, but mine was different. I did both. Sometimes I got too clingy and then sometimes I would run away, and that could happen in a matter of minutes. So go back to what I said originally about this boundaries in marriage. What I teach you to do is show up. So now, is that feeling completely gone? No, but now I show up in relationship and I explain to the person, I say, hey, I do this thing sometimes where when I feel a certain way, I'll try to run away, and I'll tell them what that runaway looks like. I said, if you see me doing that, pull closer to me, talk to me. That's what I help my clients do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible the things that we experience from early life. And I believe that everybody carries a cross on their back of some sort. All of us, and the ones that will choose to lean into that darkness, right? So a lot of times people just want to rush through the dark times in life, and people just want to and I used to be that way. If a dark time hit me, I'd be like, God, this sucks. I just want to get out of it. Right. This is terrible. I'll give you an example. I went through a dark time just a couple weeks ago. I had a week where I was just hit with different things and I went into the darkness, but it was different this time, right? Mm-hmm. Well, this time it was different because when I was in there, I wasn't asking myself disempowering questions. I wasn't asking myself questions like, why is this happening to me? I was asking myself questions. What am I here to learn? Where is this guiding me?
Right.
And I found myself almost falling into almost like a trance into it,
Mhm.
where I was learning from it rather than allowing it to ruin my life, right?
Right.
And I think there's a point of self-actualization that we can get to as human beings, that you realize like none of us are going to be, and neither should we be, happy 24/7.
Right. Right.
Like it's just that's unrealistic. We wouldn't even know what happiness looked like if we weren't dealing with sadness as well. It's a healthy emotion. It's
Right.
growth. It's cycle. Life cycles. You got the winter and you got the summer.
So here's something with happiness. And I want to also talk to you real quick about the darkness. So happiness, we're taught with our little fairy tale Disney stuff, whatever. I'm not knocking Disney if you like, but I'm just saying, keep it real, that everything tells us, oh, it's going to always be happy. Happiness is a state of mind. It's not a destination. We think, oh, I'm happy. I have to hold on to this moment so tightly. Well, as humans, we experience pleasure and pain. But we have this programming that says that we cannot have any pain. We can only have pleasure, AKA happiness. But if you think about the yin and the yang, the right and the left, the up and the down, there's always opposition, right? And if you don't have that opposition, how could I ever know that I'm experiencing pleasure if I haven't experienced anything else? So, one, just changing that concept. Like, I'm genuinely happy with my life. I could not always say that. And I have down moments. I have depressed moments. I mean, let's talk about menopause, what I think about to come up. I don't know. Got this little emotional roller coaster, right? But even in spite of that, I am genuinely happy. I'm content with my life. That means if this was a day that really, really sucked today, I'm like, crap, this day really, really sucks. But overall, my life is generally happy. And then the other part was about relationship. You were talking about the darkness, right? So this is why I'm able to help so many people. This is why I'm the queen of boundaries. I didn't give myself that title, by the way, one of my clients. But
You are though.
um, here's the thing. I teach you how to show up in the relationship. Even if we all do, you show up with, I got these abandonment issues. And believe it or not, more people have abandonment issues than they think. I have these abandonment issues, or I have mommy daddy issues. Whatever it is that you have, show up being that honest, authentic person first and foremost. I'm not in denial that sometimes I'll get a little clinky, like, where you going? And then sometimes I'm like, this don't feel right. This is too uncomfortable for me, right? But I need you to lean in. And then number two, the breaking point, like, y'all can get all the stuff, but if you hear this, you might win today in your relationship, is to stop showing up in your relationship looking for your partner to do something for you. Stop showing up in the world looking for the world to do something for you, because we think that that the universe is happening to us. The universe is not happening to us. Your partner is not happening to you. You are happening to your partner. You are happening to the world. And once you embrace that concept, what you do is get out of victim mode and you take back control of your life.
I love that because, I've talked a lot on all my podcasts specifically about relationships, right? Because I've been with my wife for 20 years and we've had our ups and downs, and she's old school woman that's dealt with some serious shit that I've delivered to her. And we talked about that, and she's old school. She don't just run away. She's in it to win it. Right. And, some of the things I talk about is like, so many people feel like they're going to go out and they're going to do things to change this other person. And the truth of the matter is that's not love, right? So love is not changing somebody else. And I tell people, I'm like, I don't care what relationship, what this woman or this man is doing to you. The one thing that you can have control over is to change yourself, become the best version of you, show up as that best version of you, work on yourself, because the moment that you put the problem outside of yourself, you disempower yourself from taking control of the situation.
Yes. No, that's you got it. You got it. And what you said about your wife, and I had the pleasure of meeting her in Texas, is true. Like, yeah, you and I kind of had to figure it out on our own, right? But we were like, man, people leave. So that's what we did. We left. But your wife, you know, being a great woman she is, she's like, she is loving the universe. Like, I'm not going nowhere. You can leave, right? Maybe in that
Yeah.
moment, right? But she's like, nah, but this is what she did. And this is, if y'all want to know, y'all got to go get that free video link. Is she was in relationship. That's the key word. She was in relationship, right? And so what I teach in that video is how to be in relationship. Oftentimes we're taught to check these boxes. A relationship, you can't check a box. You have to actually show up and do some things. You have to be engaged in something, right? Think about washing the dishes or washing your car. I can't just be like, I washed the dishes or I wash my car. I have to get in and start wiping stuff and moving some things, right? So I talk about being in relationship with with that person.
See, if I'm washing the dishes or washing the car, my wife knows I'm up to something. She knows I'm going after something.
Oh, you're one of those? Yeah, that's me. I did the cleaning. That's why I got that example.
Yeah,
but
I know that's kind of her love language, really, is when I do small things for her. Like just very little things, like get up and get her a drink out of the refrigerator and bring it to her, and go get her the bag of popcorn, whatever, you know, very tiny little things I know is what she loves and what makes her feel appreciated. So I tend to do that sometimes.
Right.
I still believe, you know, here's what I believe though, right? Like get this. Like I got into have you ever read Robert Greene's Art of Seduction?
I have not.
Oh, it's a massive book. It's like just this big, and it really is the dark side of seduction, which is incredibly intriguing to me. It talks about everybody from Cleopatra to going into the Casanova and all of the French, you know, they call them like Loisians or something like that, right? Who were just like seducers, like these men and women who were seducers. Like Cleopatra was like one of the greatest seducers of all time. And they said if you looked at her bone structure, she wasn't like they would consider like the most beautiful woman in the world, but she was revered as the most beautiful woman in the world because she showed up as a goddess. Like everywhere she came, she would, you know, appear as a god. And these men just went crazy, and she almost conquered the entire world, or did conquer the world. I don't know the whole details on that, but she was the whole book is about that. And I believe like you got to bring some of that into the marriage, right? Like no woman wants you running around like a puppy dog at them, right? I know my girl don't want me to. My girl likes me to throw her over my shoulder. She doesn't want me to run around chasing her around like a puppy dog. She likes the little bit of the back and forth, you know, and it makes life interesting. I always looked at it like this, Dr. D. If you take a cat and you got like a little, and I believe this is for men and women as well. If you got like the little thing, you know, the little string with the cat, and it's got like the little feathers on it, and the cat will bat at it, right? And you know, you'll play with it, and the cat will bat at it. But the moment you sit it on the floor and it just sits there, the cat doesn't want anything to do with it. It just walks away. I believe there's got to be this side of you in a marriage that's seductive, like a playful side of you that understands some of this stuff. So I went deep in that, in this, like probably the darkest seduction book that there is out there. But the wife just loves it because I use little techniques on her and stuff like that. You know.
So here's the thing. In the book that I have, Dating Myself Unmasked, I talk about like, you know, we read a lot of books, and oftentimes people are talking things kind of censored. I talk a lot about sexuality in here, like literally my sexuality and how to explore your own, right? Well, you have a lot of couples that are sexually frustrated because we, again, go back to trauma, like you were saying. You could come from a religious family that sex was shamed. If you were sexually abused, it may be shameful. If your parents didn't talk about sex, like my parents didn't talk about sex. I never saw my parents kiss. I think maybe once or twice I saw my mom and my stepdad kiss, but like I never saw any. The only time you saw someone kiss is when they enter the door and when they leave the door. And so, you know, I thought I was like this horrible creature because I love sex. I'm gonna tell you, I love sex. I love everything about it. I can initiate it and I can take it, and I'm comfortable with saying it. And I realized that it's so much more beautiful, and my compatibility with whoever I'm with is better because I'm honest about that. I will let I literally broke up with someone. I was like, hey, we can't come on an agreement. I need it more often. And I think if we had better and bigger conversations like that, I like it this way, I don't like it that way. It's so many boxes that people try to check saying, oh, you're heterosexual, you're this, you're that they're not even getting the thing done. Think about, I know this is not a religious conversation, but we're just going to have a story point. Adam and Eve, at one point in time, before they knew they were naked, they were getting it in. They were getting it in. They didn't even know they were naked. They were probably walking around, oh, here go a piece of fruit, bam, until they got the wrong piece of fruit. Okay. And so, again, you're talking about that relationship. It's not about sex. It's really about intimacy. So boundaries can help you have better intimacy in your relationship, because you'll start owning what it is that you want. I own, when I in my relationship, hey, I want to be closer to you. I want to touch you. I want to, hold your hand or whatever. No, I don't want to touch you right now. You have to be open and honest about these things.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. You got to be open and honest about these things, right? It's so funny that you say that, because I actually had a friend that he had to break up with a girl because she just wanted it too much. He's like, bro, man, like, he's a little older and he's dating a girl that's a little bit younger. He's like, bro, she like coming at me like 3 times a day, man. He's like, I can't even walk. I'm walking around here. Ooh, ow, man. My thing is like, I can't even walk. It's all red. And he's like, I can't take it anymore, man. So some people think it's like a man that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's like, I can handle once a day. He's like, but man, I'm 40 years old. Like, that's why you shouldn't be dating 25-year-olds.
I don't have a problem with the age thing, but in our women in our 20s, then we have our little period where we have our babies, and I think we kind of slow down a little bit, and we feel bad about it, fellas. It's not that we don't want to get, it's like it goes somewhere, right? But then you come hit that late 30s and early 40s, if you still with the same woman, you better get your stuff right. You better get your testosterone checked. You better get your vitamins, because if your girl in touch with herself, she gonna be hot. And I have guy friends that tell me, they're like, man, she got in her 40s. And I'm like, who is this woman? Where's she? But that's the kind of thing you have to talk about, because it's no such thing as a libido problem. You hear people talking about this libido problem, it's a this problem. What it is a connection and relationship problem, because you can work through anything. Sex is easy. Finance is easy, but being in relationship is the challenge.
Yeah. Shoot, I'll send them out to my boy and get him hooked up on some of that Cialis. And next thing you know, he'd be walking around like a baseball bat, fellas.
I can help him better than that. I can tell him what foods to eat. You don't have to go pay the government for that.
There's foods you can eat that make you more
Yes. So the obvious is chocolate, right? Why do you think everybody eats chocolate, right? And the purer that chocolate is, the better. Asparagus. What's another one? Oyster. Cayenne pepper is one. It's a ton. I can send you the list. So you want your wife to be a little spicy. Get her. Why you think they don't put that much asparagus on the plate? They don't want everybody humping each other at the table.
Yeah. And and that stuff makes my pee stink. So I don't even know that.
Hey, just saying it makes it a little spicy, but for real, our diet helps us with our mood. So I'm joking, but it's not just with sex and libido. Other things that we eat help us with our mood. And one of the problems that we have, my forte is mental health, because by trade, I'm a psychologist, is that we have leaky gut. We have a bad gut in the stuff that we eat. So that can affect your libido. It can affect your metabolism. It can affect your mood. So, but anyway, fellas, if you want your wife to give you some, get her some chocolate and some asparagus.
Hey, don't you think though, like my fitness trainer talks about this, and he's trying to get me to eat full on natural. It's really hard for me to do, but he tells me that like literally like that regulates your depression, like what you eat. He was talking about when you eat foods that got preservatives in them, and when you eat foods that got really unnatural things, that it cuts down your production of serotonin. It cuts down like all kinds of, the production of all kinds of chemicals that basically lead you to happiness. And my personal trainer, he swears, he goes, dude, I don't even think like depression would even be here at the level that it is if people were not eating all of this crap. and they weren't putting it in their body. Like, think about that. When you eat something, like, how do you feel when you put that crap in your body?
Mhm.
You know, and that's got to affect your libido too.
Yes, when I travel, I kind of get frustrated if I'm not like in an Airbnb where I can cook, because oftentimes, like we just came back from Utah, and where we were at, you know, it was only kind of like DoorDash unless we go find a big restaurant. So we ate like pizza. So the bread is processed, even though you have vegetables on, but my body feels incredibly different. If you go down my Facebook feed, you'll see like generally what I eat for breakfast. I either make a green smoothie here, right? Or I'll make an omelet with vegetables in it. For 2 weeks, about a month ago, I was in Costa Rica. I literally stayed in the jungle, and it was either vegan or vegetarian meal. Now, I'm not saying you have to go vegan and vegetarian. I'm a pescatarian, but at that time, I felt so energized. I felt like I had been plugged into a charger all day long. And I'm like, man, I got so much energy. He says, everyone that says that, then when they come here, because you're eating things that your body is naturally supposed to be eating. You're not supposed to be eating McDonald's and Chick-fil-A. I know people love Chick-fil-A, you know, blah, 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 and the smiling face of people, but that's processed because it has to be cooked really quickly. If you like chicken, go buy you some fresh organic chicken breast and cook it. And I bet your body will feel different than how it feels when you eat Chick-fil-A, right? Or make you some home fries. I bet your body feels different from that than the preservatives like you're talking about. Think about this, the preservatives, and I mean, I can go as deep, but I'm not gonna go too deep because this is my forte. I specialize in this as well, diet. Think about preservatives, how long food can last and that's not fresh. It's a chemical in there to trap it so it doesn't go bad. So now you have this thing that literally, this food is in your body that's not going to break down the way that it naturally should because of these chemicals. So then you wonder why we have acne. Like when my face is breaking out, I can tell you, I'll be honest, I drank soda. Soda is not what you're supposed to be drinking. You're supposed to be putting that in your body because your body is mostly this. So our diet is super important, John, super important.
Yeah, you know, one of my buddies who is an energy expert, he actually talks about that with water. So we talk a lot about kind of like the biology of belief, how when you create a belief or when you cut like a new neuro pattern in your mind, it concretes as a belief, like that biology, like how that belief actually travels into your cells individually. And one of the interesting things that we talked about is that the hydration, like if you're not properly hydrated, that's going to be the conductor that conducts not only nutrition, but also these literally your thoughts turn into chemicals, and the chemicals go into your cells.
Right.
Which is just crazy. If you guys haven't, a good read is The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. Mm-hmm. And it breaks down exactly what that is. But if you're not properly hydrated, it's like trying to conduct through sludge inside of your system. You're not going to have the conductors needed to actually to get the nutrition and things like that in the cells. Now, I got a question for you. This is interesting because you know Trevor and Kale from the Real Business Owner podcast?
Vaguely.
Okay. So we were coming back from Flying Friday, and I admittedly I literally got dosed with a friend gave me a jelly that had THC in it, and I don't smoke and I don't really eat it that often either. So he basically dosed me by telling me it was all CBD, and I ate it, and you're gonna be fucked up now, right? And so we're coming back and we're talking about this, and Trevor goes on to say that they recently visited a shaman, and they did the whole ayahuasca thing. And and I think it was somewhere in maybe even in Colorado that they did this. And so they ended up doing this whole ayahuasca thing. And the shaman kind of explained that apparently that when we're born, we have 70% happy cells and 30% angry cells. And apparently when we deprive our happy cells, our angry cells start to take over and eat our happy cells and turn our happy cells into angry cells until literally one day, there's people that will one day wake up and they're just mad. Like literally from the moment they wake up to the end of the day, they're angry at like a cellular level. And there's got to be like this transformation, this mental transformation, this belief transformation added with, like you say, nutrition and all these things to speed up the cellular transformation. They got to transform at the cellular level to even become happy again.
Right. So I guess maybe you're asking me what my thoughts are about what the shaman said.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is my thought, because I used to be, I still feel I'm a minister, but I used to be in organized religion, right? I believe that all truth is truth. Like, it's not like, oh, this is kind of true. And it's not, it just depends on who's telling the story. Okay.
Right.
And so while I believe that there's some truth in what he's saying, I can only speak to, because I don't know that experience of where I see the truth in that. Like, yeah, there are some people that just wake up just angry. And so the way I look at it, because I'm also clairvoyant, light, oracle, psychic, medium, whatever you want to call it, it's energy. Energy can either be created or destroyed, right? Like, remember that from school? And so if this person is harnessing negative energy, is what I call it. And I'm sure the shaman will probably agree to some of this, right? Because they do energy work as well. If they're harnessing nothing but negative energy, then would you agree that that would grow and grow and grow? And so that's where, if I take it to psychology, you know, a person says, I just have these obsessive thoughts. I just have these negative thoughts, because they're pontificating on this negativity, and it grows and it grows and it grows. So I'm in agreement that you can be a person that's stuck in a place of unhappiness. But this is the part where I think, I don't know if the shaman said this, I believe that we all have choice. And I can't tell you how many clients that I have when they're like, okay, Dr. D, what is it? You know, and I talk to them about it, and they're like, well, what do I do? I say, you choose. They say, okay, but what do I do? I say, you choose. But what do I do? What they're looking for, and my book is great, my books are great, but they want me to say, okay, what you do is you wake up 10 times and blink your eyes and then jump up and down. But they're looking for, people really are stuck, that they don't understand that they have the choice to take responsibility for their lives, because we have been so programmed that we can only do what we're told to do. So if you're in a negative, if you're watching this right now, if you're in a negative space, you're not in a negative space because your spouse, the world, the government, none of that stuff. You're in a negative space because you're choosing to be. Right now, under the sound of my voice, you can choose to do something different. You can get a book, you can listen to a podcast, you can go outside and sing lullabies for all I care. Choose to do something different.
And make a decision, like a real decision, and begin acting on that decision. And is that choice going to be painful to begin with? It is. Like, I still remember the day, Dr. D, like, you know, I grew up, I didn't hear any of this positivity stuff when I was growing up. Like, I didn't even know that it existed. I didn't know that, you know, Tony Robbins existed. I didn't know that, you know, any of this stuff was so far out of my world that I didn't know any of it. So, like, I grew up with all this negative shit talk going through my head. And I just remember one day that, like, finally I just literally, like, broke down into tears, and I'm sitting here and I'm like 22, 23 years old. And I'm just like, why in the fuck? Like, I'm in hell. You know what I mean? Like, I'm literally in hell day in and day out. My mind is shooting these, like, negative thoughts all the time. And I remember my friend gave me a Stephen Covey book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I start to read this book, and it's like, it becomes like biblical to me. And I'm reading the pages in this book, and I'm like, this is shit that I've never been told. Like, nobody has ever told me that there was another way to live, that there was another way to think, that there was another way to be. And so I'm learning this stuff, and I get, like, addicted to it, you know, as I am today. I even got to the point where I listened to Think and Grow Rich for 2 years, the CDs. I had a 1998 Expedition, and it had the CD changer. You remember the center console would hold 6 CDs? I'd put all the CDs in there, and I listened to it for 2 years straight to break out of this prison that I was in.
I had that same book for I don't know how long, and every time I got to, like, I could only get to like a chapter or two, because, like you said, you couldn't believe that. So I was reading, I'm like, oh, this is an old book. This can't be for me. And I literally just finished reading that book a couple of years ago, and I'm like, Dad, why didn't I read the whole book? But I understand it now, because you aren't taught these things. 2 other of my favorite books. One is The Dark Side of Light Chasers. You were talking earlier about darkness. I love that book. And when I read it, I was like, oh my God, I want to meet this lady. I found out that she's deceased, but she talks about being in touch with that. Remember, I was talking about it, being in and yang. You can't have the light, you can't have the beautiful side of you if you're not in touch with those things that you keep trying to hide. And then the other one is the Four Agreements. That book, if you know, that could be the Bible on life, you know, because it really, the reason why I thought of that book, because you were saying I was in my own hell. And in the book, he says that we create our own heaven and hell. And I've been able to release clients just by saying, I was like, you know, just by the things that you're saying, you're creating your own hell. Like, imagine that. Like, we've been told that, hey, you're going to die and go to hell. But what if you're speaking these negative things into your life? You know, how many times do we say things that we really shouldn't say? I was the main person of that. And I put that in that first book I was telling you about. Like, oh, you're so stupid. You're such an idiot. Because those were things I heard. And so I just started developing that same way of talking to myself. So we create our own heaven or hell. Even go back to relationships. Let's bring it full circle when we talk about boundaries, right? Your relationship could purely be hell because you're creating that. You're showing up and you're already expecting your partner to do something to piss you off, right? That's hell, because your partner could really be trying to come and give you something beautiful, but you've already dedicated in your mind that it's going to be terrible. Imagine that.
You're right. You know, then the Four Agreements is an incredible book. Like, I listen to that at least once a year. So the Four Agreements is incredible. And then I was actually going to mention something about that earlier, because he talks about the ways that you can get out of this mental hell. You know, he talks about the methods, and one of them, I believe, is what people would want to call born again, meaning that you literally have to be born again, just like Jesus Christ talked about. You have to be. You literally have to be a totally different you. Like, wake up one day and just, I always say that, like, I get like these born again transformation things that happen to me once a month. And I believe that's leveling up. Like, we all talk about leveling up. I believe, like, back then, like, biblically, that was born again. You got to be a new person, a new you. You got to leave this old person behind. And I think that's a continuous journey for all of us. Like, all of us are going to get to the point to where we've outgrown, as long as you're progressing in life. You know, there's people that stay the same. There's people that stay where they want to stay. But if you're like me, or like you, or like many of the people listening to this podcast, we crave and we desire something bigger. We want that giant inside of us to come out. And, you know, I'm living life of like my giant from 4 years ago, right? So like, I'm a giant now from 4 years ago. So I'm living my dream, but your dream will get bigger and you almost have to be reborn again, like every time. And, you know, and when that happens, people don't realize they go through depression phase. And the depression phase, from my friend Mike Kaminsky talks about this, the depression phase that you'll go through after that enlightenment where you're born again, then you're like, oh man, is you are mourning the person that's dying. There's a person inside of you that you're leaving behind. And that person is dying. And somehow your mind, your body, your heart, your soul subconsciously like mourns the death of that person as you move to the new you.
Right. No, that's true. I was going to say something, but I'm going to speak to that. So I can't tell you how many clients I heal them. I'm a healer, right? And I believe we start work the first session. Like, we're not waiting till I know people that see therapists for 2 years. You're seeing a therapist for 2 years, you better go ahead and get in Dr. D inbox. But so couple sessions, 1 to 3 sessions, they're already where they need to be. And then if some of them come back in the 4th session and they're like telling me the same, like, wait a minute, didn't we address this already in the first session? And then I already know what it is. They miss that. They're used to having anxiety, right? They're used to being anxious. And so that's gone. It's called a grieving period. And so it's like, no, I can't. Like, how did I get here? No, I'm supposed to be anxious. No, I have to say to them, when you go see your medical doctor, don't you expect to feel better? And they say, yes. I said, okay, I'm a doctor. Okay, I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm a mind doctor. And I said, you feel better. You don't have to go back to that place. And so what you're explaining is a true reality that people experience. And what I like about the Four Agreements is this. I think it's and I'll recommend this book all the time to my clients. And you can even think about it in that when I talked about boundaries, is that how you're showing up to relationships. The author, Don Miguel Ruiz, says this: we're all in our own movie. You're in your relationship, but you're thinking that your wife or your husband, if someone else, right, is the star in the movie. No, you're the star in your own movie. Once you realize that you're the star of the movie and you get to dictate how things go, it's a lot better. But when you're thinking that the movie is happening to you, complete hell. And so when I read that the first time, I was like, oh, I'm making this stuff happen. And so now I do, as being someone that has had past trauma, you easily want to go into victim mode. That go back to, I want to be anxious. I have to be depressed. I have to be unhappy because I'm been told that I'm a victim. Now you're in your own movie. And I'm like, hey, this Dr. D show. Marketing Savage says, no, Dr. D, it's my show. That's fine in his world, in his mind. But right here, I'm the star of the show.
That's right. No, that's right. No, I that's awesome. Yeah, that's just the whole thing is life is like happening for you, not to you.
Right.
You know, life is happening for you, not to you. And I truly believe the more we develop and the more we self-actualize, we end up just taking everything that comes towards us and we churn it into some sort of positive energy. Yeah, I literally have a trampoline sitting out here outside of my office that I jump on every morning. And I do it because I want to be reminded that the world, that, you know, that little dip when you jump in the trampoline where you go down that shoots you higher. Like the world is always going to try to push you down. The world, our friend Ryan Stewman calls it the force of average, is always going to try to hold you down. But that's the momentum that you need to go higher. And it's all about how we accept these things, right? And when you know you're on the winning path is when you get hit with some shitty news and you go, oh man, I want to turn this into a fucking win. I'm going to go out there and, like, you know, I'm going to take that negative energy and it's going to come out of me in such a fucking positive way that, you know, that it's an empowerment rather than a disadvantage.
Right. Because people like you and I, Mark, John, I would say Marketing Savage, John, is that we've learned and we didn't always know. So if you're watching this, you're like, man, I can't do that. No, we were in a place where we didn't know, but we were curious, right? We were curious about life. Like, it's something that I'm missing. And you use that word self-actualize, right? That's a psychological word. And so I like to dumb things down for people. What we mean by self-actualization, it means that you're your authentic self. You keeping it real, you keeping it 100. And oftentimes we've been taught to lie to ourselves. We've been taught to say, hey, I don't really like sex, or no, I don't really like blue, or no, I don't really like fat or sexy or thin or tall, right? But when you're self-actualized, when you're being your 100 self, whether you're having a good feeling, a bad feeling, whatever it is, you're owning that. Whether you need to grow more, you're owning that. You're taking control of your life. And that growth that you're talking about, I don't even think it's growth. This is what I think it is. We've been piled on with layers of crap, right, to hide who we truly are. I wish I wore my sweatshirt today, but I talk about it in this book. I say, I am a voice. Deep inside all of that crap there's a voice inside of you that tells you exactly what you need to do, tells you exactly where you need to be, exactly how you need to live. And when I tell my clients when they come in, you're not coming to me because I'm anybody special and I'm going to do some hocus pocus. You're coming to me because you're not trusting yourself. You're not trusting that voice within. And so whatever specialty I do, whether it's my books, me speaking on stage, I'm speaking to that voice and saying, come out, we need you. The universe needs you. You don't have to hide anymore.
I love it. Holy moly. That's awesome. That's incredible, Dr. D. So time is about up here. I got another meeting that I got to jump on here in just a little bit. Man, what an incredible podcast. There was just so many knowledge bombs just dropped in that last, rant there that you just went on. Incredible stuff. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find more about you?
Sure. At my website, from AKA Marketing Savage John, it's assertyourself.com. That's AZZERTURSELF.com. I actually came up with that term, that rant that you were talking about at the very end. It's because I encourage people to assert who they are.
And I'm personally going to drop the free boundaries blueprint down here in the comments. So I'll go ahead and drop that in there for y'all who want to jump in there and download it. It's completely free. And it's definitely well worth it, my friends. So anyhow, Dr. D, I appreciate having you along on this this latest Marketing Revolution podcast. And as usual, we're going to see you guys on the next one.